We wanted security. We wanted safety. There was no insurrection, and there wasn't going to be an insurrection. It was made up by these sick people. Nancy Pelosi and the D.C. mayor refused. If they'd listened to me, my recommendation, none of this would have happened, and you wouldn't have heard about January 6th as we know it. They covered up multiple tweets, and they covered up a video which were censored by Twitter and the FBI, in which I called for law and order and for no violence. And then they pushed an absurd and discredited story where I supposedly lunged for the steering wheel in an attempt to commandeer a presidential limousine. Think of it. I lunged for a steering wheel, and they believe that story. Nobody believes that story. The committee barely even discussed the catastrophic security failures at the Capitol, and they didn't discuss the other thing, the reason that everybody went there, the election, which was a corrupt disaster. They did not discuss why the doors were flung wide open for people to walk right in, and they didn't discuss the role of federal informants. Most importantly, the Unselect Committee did not produce a single shred of evidence that I in any way intended or wanted violence at our Capitol. The evidence does not exist because the claim is baseless and a monstrous lie. They know it. It's just like the Russia hoax. This is absolutely no different. It's misinformation, the only thing they're good at. Cheating in elections, misinformation. The events of January 6th were not an insurrection. They were a protest that tragically got out of control and which the left has been weaponizing ever since to censor, spy on, and persecute American citizens. The entire phony hoax is about taking away your speech, taking away your vote, and taking away your freedom. These are sick people. These are Marxists.
Well, looks like Donald Trump finally found out about the January 6th committee's final report, because here he is melting down on air in the wake of the committee sending 4 criminal referrals to the special counsel, including obstructing an official proceeding, making false statements, defrauding the U.S., and inciting an insurrection. Of course, leaving it to Trump to view himself as the victim only after his crimes were put on full display. Now, in terms of Trump's response, he starts off here by claiming, quote, there was no insurrection, that it was, quote, made up by these people. In other words, the strategy here is just to pretend that the insurrection didn't happen. People stormed the U.S. Capitol amid the haze of pepper spray and chance to have the vice president assassinated for not anointing the guy who lost the winner? Nope, didn't see nothing. He then said Nancy Pelosi and the D.C. mayor refused, which is a reference to this conspiracy theory that Pelosi and Mayor Bowser withheld the National Guard or law enforcement from responding on January 6th, which is an abject lie. Neither one of those people has any jurisdiction over the National Guard or the Capitol Police, period. Republicans can pretend that they did, but it's nothing more than make-believe. But even though they have no jurisdiction, even still, Pelosi did call for law enforcement.
Hi, Governor. This is Nancy. Governor, I don't know if you have been approached about the Virginia National Guard. Mr. Hoyer was speaking to Governor Hogan, but I still think you probably need the okay of the federal government in order to come into another jurisdiction. Thank you.
Secretary of the Army.
Oh my gosh, they're just breaking windows, they're doing all kinds of, it's really that they said somebody was shot. It was just horrendous, and all at the instigation of the President of the United States. Okay, thank you, Governor. I appreciate what you're doing, and if you don't mind, I'd like to stay in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Virginia Guard has been called in.
You know, I'm just talking to Governor Northam, and what he said is they sent 200 state police and a unit of the National Guard. They're breaking windows and going in, obviously ransacking our offices and all the rest of that. That's nothing. The concern we have about personal harm, personal safety is just transcends everything. But the fact is, on any given day, they're breaking the law in many different ways. And quite frankly, much of it at the instigation of the President of the United States. And now, if he could at least somebody.
Yeah, why don't you get the president to tell them to leave the Capitol, Mr. Attorney General, in your law enforcement responsibility? A public statement, they should all leave.
You also have troops. This is Steny Hoyer. Troops.
Okay, so we have a little
Fort
bit of time
McNair,
to make that decision.
Andrews Air Force Base.
All right.
Other military bases.
Thank you.
We
Thanks,
need
Paul.
active
Bye.
duty National Guard.
So not only was Pelosi not able to call in the National Guard, but she tried to anyway. So when Trump says that they refused, someone might want to hand him a mirror. Trump then goes on to claim that he was censored on Twitter when he posted a very, very innocent video. Only this is what the video actually said.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election.
He validated the very reason for the insurrection, continuing to falsely suggest that he was wronged in the election or that it was somehow stolen and fraudulent. So not only is there no remorse here, but the guy actually continues to promote the very lie that caused the insurrection in the first place. If you're wondering why Twitter removed the video, they probably recognize the very simple fact that when you perpetuate this idea of a stolen election, it tends to cause thousands of people to storm the Capitol seeking to assassinate anyone who suggests otherwise. And by the way, for those who say, yeah, but he told his people to go home in that video and he called for law and order. Right, he called for law and order more than 3 hours after the insurrection first started, and not earlier. That's like an arsonist standing in front of a forest fire that he set hours ago and calling for protecting the forest. You don't get credit for opposing the thing that you quite literally just inspired. And then Trump's lies get more insidious, like when he yet again repeats the lie at the heart of all of this, and he says this.
The committee barely even discussed the catastrophic security failures at the Capitol, and they didn't discuss the other thing, the reason that everybody went there, the election, which was a corrupt disaster.
And look, I may be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure everyone did discuss the legitimacy of the election arguably 100 times per day. Specifically, the more than 60 court cases, including 9 at the hands of Trump-appointed judges, that Trump and his allies lost, all of which suggested that there was fraud in the election. So Trump can traffic in this fairy tale that we didn't talk about the legitimacy of the election, but in fact we had election officials, secretaries of state, governors, judges, even Trump's own White House officials who all defended the results. And the only person spreading any disinformation in that realm was Donald Trump. From there, another insidious lie.
Most importantly, the Unselect Committee did not produce a single shred of evidence that I in any way intended or wanted violence at our Capitol.
That purportedly the January 6th committee provided no evidence that Trump knew about or wanted violence. Only small issue, considering they did.
When we were in the offstage announce area tent behind the stage, he was very concerned about the shot, meaning the photograph that we would get, because the rally space wasn't full. One of the reasons, which I've previously stated, was because he wanted it to be full and for people to not feel excluded because they'd come far to watch him at the rally. And he felt the mags were at fault for not letting everybody in. But another leading reason, and likely the primary reason, is because he wanted it full and he was angry that we weren't letting people through the mags with weapons, what the Secret Service deems as weapons and our weapons. But when we were in the offstage announce tent, I was part of a conversation. I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, you know, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in. Take the effing mags away.
I don't care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. In other words, not only did Trump know that people were armed, but he wanted the armed people to be in the crowd. So unless he thought that guns were used as some peace offering, then yeah, pretty sure the guy wanted the violence. But here's my favorite part of all of this, when Trump inadvertently proves just how full of shit he actually is.
No different. It's misinformation. The only thing they're good at. Cheating in elections, misinformation. The events of January 6th were not an insurrection.
He accuses the Democrats of spreading misinformation, and in the very next breath says that the Democrats cheated in the election and that the events of January 6th were not an insurrection. Tell you what, Trump may lie his face off, but he's very good at projection. And if these statements seem even more deranged and deluded than normal, there is a reason for that. He's backed into a corner, the special counsel is bearing down on him, he doesn't have the levers of government to protect him, and after this report and the criminal referrals from the January 6th committee, he knows he's screwed. This isn't Trump coming from a place of strength, he's coming from a position of weakness, a position of desperation and fear. And if this video shows us anything, it's that he knows it better than anyone. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. You can click the thumbnail right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work even further, the best way is to subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. There you can check out my interviews with major players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, Jamie Raskin, and so many more. Plus other interviews that live exclusively on the podcast. That link is also right here on this screen, or just search No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen wherever you listen to podcasts.